We've all changed, right? The person you were, say, 5 or 10 years ago, that's not quite the person you are today. So how do you talk about that? How do you explain the habits and routines that made you you back then? Well, in this explainer, we're going to master the one essential tool you absolutely need: used to.
So check this out. On the left, you've got someone who lived in the city, ran on coffee, and hated mornings. And now, they're out in the country, drinking herbal tea and waking up at 5 a.m. Talk about a transformation. This is the kind of story that happens to all of us in ways both big and small.
And that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? How do we build that bridge in English between the person we were and the person we are now? How do we talk about our past selves clearly and, naturally?
The answer is this awesome little phrase, used to. It's a special piece of grammar designed for this exact job. See, it's not just about the past. It's about things that are done, finished, over, they're no longer true. And that's the key thing to remember. It always creates a contrast between then and now.
For instance, if you say, I used to live in this city, that one little sentence tells us two things. One, you lived in the city in the past, and two, you don't live there anymore. It's so clean and efficient. It perfectly captures that big change we just saw.
So we get why it's so useful, but how do you actually use it? Let's get into the mechanics. We're going to look at the blueprint for building these sentences perfectly every single time.
Okay, first up, let's start with the most common version, the positive form. This is what you'll use to talk about things that actually were a habit or were true for you in the past.
And you're going to love this. The formula is super simple. It's just 3 little parts. You start with your subject, I, you, she, they, whatever. Then you add used to, and then, and this part is really important, you finish with the base verb. That's the simple original form of the verb, not the past tense.
Let's go back to our character from the beginning. We can say, she used to drink a lot of coffee. See how that works? The subject is she, then comes used to, and then the base verb, drink. Perfect. It tells us all about her old coffee habit, a habit that's now a thing of the past.
But what about all the stuff that wasn't true? What about the habits you didn't have? Well, for that, we need the negative form. And this is where one tiny, but absolutely critical, rule comes into play.
Okay, listen up, because this is the single most common mistake people make. When you use didn't, the word did is already in the past tense. So that means the D on used, it just vanishes. Poof, it's gone. You don't need it anymore.
So here's the new structure. You've got your subject, followed by didn't used to. Notice no D on use, and then the base verb. Just like before. That little word did is doing all the heavy lifting for the past tense.
For example, he didn't used to like vegetables. What does that sentence tell you? It implies that now he does. The structure itself signals the change. It's a whole story packed into one little sentence.
All right, so we can talk about what was true and what wasn't. Now let's figure out how to ask questions, because this is how you go from just stating facts about your past to really digging into someone else's story.
And the formula for questions follows that same logic we just learned. You start with did, then you add the subject, then, yep, you guessed it, used to, with no D. And finally, you finish with a base verb and a question mark.
And here's a pro tip for answering. If someone asks you, did you used to have long hair? You don't need to say, yes, I used to have long hair. Just keep it short and sweet. A simple, yes, I did, or no, I didn't sounds way more natural.
Okay, you've got the blueprint. You know the basics. Now let's fine-tune things a bit. This part is all about avoiding those common traps and understanding the little details that will make you sound like a total pro.
So, a common question is, why not just use the simple past? Well, the difference is huge. Used to is for a past reality, a habit, a routine, a state that lasted for a while. The simple past is for a single, specific event that's over. Think of it like this. I used to play guitar is part of your life story. I played guitar last night is just a report on what you did yesterday. Here's another key distinction. You might hear people use the word would to talk about past habits, and for actions, that's often okay. But, and this is a big but, for states, like feelings or conditions, you have to use used to. You just can't say, I would be shy. It has to be, I used to be shy.
Oh man, this next trap catches almost everyone. It goes right back to one of our first rules. Always use the base verb after used to. It is so easy to forget and say something like used to went. But remember, used to already takes care of the past. It's always used to go.
Let's just lock in our most important rule one last time, okay? Especially for questions. That little duh is sneaky. It loves to creep back in. But remember, once did shows up at the party, the D on used has to go home. It's always did you used to. Every time.
So, we've gone through the rules, the formulas, all the common traps. But let's bring this all back to what really matters. This isn't just a grammar lesson. This is about being a better storyteller.
This is where you see the real power. I used to eat junk food, but now I eat healthy. She used to be very shy, but now she's confident. Each one of those isn't just a fact, it's a mini story about growth and change. It's that bridge from who you were to who you are. And that's what makes language so powerful.
So I want to leave you with a question to think about. It's not just about what you used to do, it's about what you used to think. So what's something you used to believe that you no longer do? Answering that question for yourself, well, that's the real heart of telling your own story.